We've all been there, right? 2, 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, wondering if we'll ever fall asleep.
The worst.
You try everything warm milk, counting sheep, those meditation apps that are supposed to lull you into dreamland.
Yeah, sometimes they work, sometimes not so much.
Exactly. But what if the key to a better night's sleep was something a little more fun than we'd expect?
Okay, now you've got my attention.
Right. So, in this deep dive, we're going to dig into some research that looked at whether sex actually leads to better sleep. And I got to say, some of the findings were a little surprising, even to me.
Interesting. Well, don't leave us hanging. What's the study?
Right. So, the study we're diving into is called Sex and Sleep: Perceptions of Sex as a Sleep-Promoting Behavior in the General Adult Population. It was published back on March 4th, 2019 in Frontiers in Public Health, which is a pretty reputable journal.
Solid start.
Now, this research was led by a researcher named Michele Lestella, and they surveyed a pretty decent sample size, 778 adults.
Okay, so we're not talking about a tiny study here.
Right. But here's the thing. They weren't measuring sleep in a lab or anything like that with all the fancy equipment and whatnot.
So it wasn't like they were hooking people up to EEGs and the...
Yeah,
wow.
exactly. This study was all about people's perceptions of their sleep after different sexual activities. Not just a one-night thing, but patterns they noticed over time.
Got it. So how people felt their sleep was after sex, whether it was actually different or not. Interesting.
And you know what? They found that most people did feel that sex led to better sleep, at least in certain situations.
So it's all about perception, which we know isn't always perfectly accurate, but I'm guessing even perception on this scale is valuable data, right?
Absolutely, especially because there's actually not a ton of research out there on this connection.
Really?
Yeah.
That surprises me. I feel like it's something people talk about a lot, anecdotally.
You'd think so, right?
Mhm.
But in terms of actual scientific study, it's surprisingly scarce.
Huh. Okay, so go on. Tell me more about these perceived benefits. Do we think they could have an actual biological basis?
Well, that's what's really fascinating. Some scientists believe that the hormonal changes that happen after orgasm, especially the release of oxytocin and prolactin, could be a big part of it.
Makes sense. Those are often called the feel-good hormones, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they're also really important for regulating sleep.
Right. I remember learning about that. Okay, so how do those hormones tie into all of this?
Well, oxytocin, for instance, it's known for its calming bonding effects.
Like when you're cuddling with someone.
Exactly. Or, having sex.
Right, of course.
And then there's prolactin, which is linked to those feelings of relaxation and drowsiness.
Yeah.
That feeling of just wanting to crash after.
Yeah. Okay, I see where you're going with this.
So it's not a huge leap to think that this whole hormonal cocktail could be contributing to the sleep benefits people reported in the study.
Fascinating. But I do have a question. We always hear those jokes about men being from Mars and women being from Venus.
Oh, here we go.
Just hear me out. Were there any differences in how men and women experienced these sleep benefits?
You already know the answer to that, don't you?
Maybe. But you tell me.
Oh, funny you should ask.
Yeah.
Because the study actually found some intriguing gender differences. Interestingly, men were more likely than women to report that any sexual activity with a partner, regardless of whether they had an orgasm, improved their sleep.
See, I knew it. Men.
Hold on now, let's not jump to conclusions just yet. There are a few things to unpack here. This difference between men and women, it raises more questions than it answers, right?
Like what?
Well, like, why the difference in the first place? Could it be connected to that orgasm gap everyone's always talking about?
The what gap? Okay, you're going to have to back up and explain that one for me.
Right. So basically, studies have shown that men tend to reach climax more consistently during partnered sex than women do.
Ah, okay, I'm with you now.
So that could be part of why they're reporting these sleep benefits, even if they didn't personally have an orgasm.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I'm guessing it's probably not the whole story, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other things to consider, too. Like, this study didn't look at psychological factors or relationship dynamics. All that stuff could play a role, too. It's complicated.
For sure. Relationships are a whole other can of worms.
Tell me about it. But speaking of things that are complicated, orgasms.
Oh, and what about them?
Well, the study also looked at whether having an orgasm made a difference in how people felt about their sleep quality. And this is where things get interesting for everyone, not just men.
Oh, okay, now I really want to know where this is going.
So they found that when participants, both men and women, had an orgasm with a partner, the majority of them said they had better sleep quality and they fell asleep faster.
Interesting. So it sounds like the big O might be the key here, no matter how you get there.
That's what it's looking like. It seems like that whole hormonal surge that comes with orgasm could be a major player in getting better sleep. But there's one more piece to this puzzle.
Okay, don't leave me hanging. What's the last piece?
What about those times when someone's flying solo? Does that kind of self-care have the same effect on sleep?
Ooh, good question. I'm guessing they didn't look at that.
Oh, but they did. And here's the really surprising part. The study found absolutely no gender differences when it came to how solo sexual activity affected sleep.
Really? That's wild. So, unlike with partner sex, where men were more likely to see those sleep benefits.
Exactly. With masturbation, it seemed to have pretty similar effect on both men and women.
Huh. So, is it just as simple as sex equals better sleep? End of story.
Well, not quite. I mean, just doing the deed, solo or otherwise, didn't seem to make a huge difference for most people. But get this. Experiencing an orgasm while flying solo, that led to over half of the participants reporting better sleep quality.
Interesting. So, it really does seem like reaching that peak, however you get there, might be what unlocks those sleep benefits for a lot of people.
It really makes you think, huh?
It really does. It's like our bodies are saying, all right, enough fun, time to relax and recharge.
It's funny how that works. But it really makes you appreciate that whole mind-body connection and how tapping into that could help you get a better night's sleep.
Absolutely. It's all connected.
So to kind of bring it all back around, it seems like the answer to whether sex leads to better sleep isn't just a simple yes or no.
Right. There's definitely some nuance to it.
Exactly. But based on everything we've talked about today, it seems like hopping in the sack solo or with a partner could help some people catch some Z's.
Yeah, no arguments here, though like with everything else, your mileage may vary.
Totally. But what I found super interesting was the whole thing about orgasms and how they seem to play a role.
Yeah, that definitely stood out to me too.
I mean, we know we need more research to really nail down that connection. But the findings from this study really make you think that maybe, just maybe, reaching that peak of pleasure, however you get there might be a big part of what helps some people sleep better, fall asleep faster, all that good stuff.
It's an interesting thought, for sure.
It really is. And it makes you wonder, could this be like a whole untapped area for sleep improvement? We've talked before about mindfulness, aromatherapy, even just having a really comfy sleep environment. But maybe incorporating this kind of natural, pleasurable activity into our routines could be another way to get better sleep. Something to think about, right?
Definitely. I might just try that myself.
Hey, worth a shot. So next time you're tossing and turning, maybe skip the warm milk and consider exploring a different kind of sleep aid.
A much more fun one, I'd say.
Exactly, one that taps into your body's natural ability to unwind and drift off. All right, everyone, that's it for this deep dive. We'd love to hear your thoughts, though. Have you noticed a difference in your sleep after, shall we say, certain activities? Hit us up on social media, share your experiences. You might even inspire some self-experimentation among your fellow dick divers. Until next time, sweet dreams.